Ah, hello, ladies and gentlemen, and everything in between. Welcome back to What's on the Playlist today. Today I'm going to talk about Eat a Peach by the Allman Brothers, an image of which you will see here. If you notice the image behind me is different, we'll get to that in a minute. Anyway, Allman Brothers was kind of a folk rock band of the late 60s, early 70s, mostly. Although their career did continue on from that. Eat a Peach is their third album. Well, not their third album. It was meant to be their third studio album. It's a mixture of live and studio recording, so it kind of is both their third studio excuse me is both their third studio album and their second live album combined. It was initially released as a 2-disc vinyl set because it has some very long instrumental pieces on it. Their first two albums had modest sales. They didn't really do very well. I mean, they did okay, but weren't big hits. But it was their live performances that kept them kind of kept them in the public eye and kept them noticed. Their live shows were outstanding. And to go along with that, they released a live album, live at the Fillmore, I think it was. That album was a huge success. So, flush with money and success, rags to riches in like 3 or 4 weeks. The band basically started struggling with drug addiction, to the point where 2 of the band members and 2 of their roadies went into rehab together. Although rehab in 1971 was basically just a psych ward. They didn't have real rehabilitation centers in 1971. One of the band was formed by Greg and Dwayne Allman. Dwayne Allman was one of the ones who went into rehab. Although all the band kind of struggled a little bit. Some of them struggled more than others. When they finally got out of quote-unquote rehab, they started putting songs together. And Dwayne Allman, the older brother, died in a motorcycle accident in October of 1971. This really devastated the band. Greg, the younger brother, didn't take it well, to the point where one of the band members actually took over leading the band. And they struggled not knowing what they were going to do. They'd already put down a couple tracks. They'd already started recording some songs for their album, and they just weren't sure if they were going to do it. And they kind of got together and thought, it's like, we kind of have to do this for Dwayne. They did this album kind of in his memory. Ain't Wasting Time No More, which is the lead song on the album, is kind of about his brother Dwayne, but also tribute to the Vietnam vets coming home from war. It's kind of a tribute to people that the band that you've lost. The song Melissa, which was sung by Greg Allman, as a tribute to his brother Dwayne. It was his brother's favorite song. It was also a song they'd never performed before. It had been written 4 years prior to this, but they didn't really think it fit the sound of the band. They were kind of, planning on doing maybe a solo record later when the band, if the band broke up years down the road, they were going to do it solo. But this Eat a Peach was basically a tribute to Dwayne. He was a driving force of the band. He was the band's front man. He was one of the primary composers and songwriters. There is, it's upside down. Gotta check as one. I want to make sure something that's in my head, but I'm yes, Little Martha, which is it's an instrumental guitar solo. Basically, it's an acoustic guitar solo. Very calm, very smooth, very mellow. It is basically the only song on this album that is attributed to Dwayne and Dwayne alone. Some of these tracks were recorded before Dwayne passed, especially some of the live performances. Little Martha is probably one of my favorite guitar songs. I don't have a lot of solely instrumental pieces that I really love that much. Little Martha is one of them. Mountain Jam is a 33.5-minute piece song that when this was on LPs, they actually had to break up into two sides. This was originally, I mentioned it was a 2-disc set. And yeah, Mountain Jam was just, it's a half-hour long piece. A lot of people remember the Grateful Dead as being like a band that would just get up there and jam. A lot of people forget that the Allman Brothers Band from the same era was the same type of band as the Grateful Dead. Just a good jam band. And they were solid. Another thing that makes this band stand out a little more is that I think I mentioned previously that most songs that got radio play were between 2.5 and 3.5 minutes long. That was a good radio length. This album has a lot of long songs on it, not just Mountain Jam, which is 33.5, but like Les Brez in a Minor is 9 minutes. One Way Out is 4.5. Blue Sky, which is one of their staples, is 5 minutes 8 seconds. There's a lot of long songs on this, which I mentioned again, for its time, was very unusual. And these songs aren't radio play. This album, when it was released, went to #2 in the Billboard 200 charts and stayed, was there for quite a while. This was a smash hit. And when it was released, a lot of people, before it even went out of the gate, just kind of didn't want anything to do with it. They figured Dwayne was the front man. The band can't be any good without him. They just kind of dismissed him before they even heard anything. But once people started hearing the songs, hearing the album, it took off. This is one of their best-selling albums of all time, with some of their best songs. It is the only Allman Brothers album that I have. Not even sure why. I think it's one of those things I just never got around to, it's kind of reared its head and said, oh, I should probably get more of their stuff. I probably should. Other things have probably been more top of mind. Yeah, this is it's a good album. As I've said, it's one of their best albums. The other thing I wanted to mention is the album artwork. The front, the giant peach in the back of a truck. The artist actually found a postcard in Georgia with this picture on it, and he hand lettered the Allman Brothers name on the side of the truck. The phrase "eat a peach" is actually something that Dwayne Allman used to say. It's like, there's no evolution, there's no revolution, just evolution. You can't stop the change. I'll just eat a peach for peace. It's something that he said once. So that's where the title "Eat a Peach" came from. The reason there's a separate image back there is that that's the inside of the album cover. It was a double album, which means you could open it, and there was, an LP on this side and an LP on this side, and there was an inside cover. If you look at the inside of the CD flap, it's just the song listing and the names of the writers and band members who performed instrumentals on it. One of the bad things about CDs is that you don't get this stuff. You don't get any of the additional really cool stuff that you used to get when you bought LPs and these big artistic art covers. This is just kind of a psychedelic piece, but yeah, kids these days will never know the joy of opening a record and finding out that there's cool artwork all over it. They don't get the lyrics, they don't get the additional artwork that I grew up with. I loved records as a kid growing up. I loved double records. I loved being able to open up and see the additional artwork. If the band had like a photograph of the four band members on the front cover, if you open up, there would be multiple shots of them doing different things on the inside cover or on the back cover that you just don't get anymore. And it's one of the things I miss about vinyl. I don't have room to store 800 pieces of vinyl. The 800 CDs that I have take up a lot of room, and I keep getting more. I got 4 on my desk I need to install in my music player, and I'm just gonna keep getting. I'm gonna keep until as long as I can. Anyway, Allman Brothers, Eat a Peach, great album from the early 1970s, great band from the early 1970s that managed to survive the death of one of their members. And actually, after this, the band went through people quite quickly. Dwayne was just the most prominent member who died at the age of 24. Man, that was young. I joined my kids. That's rough. Anyway, as always, thanks for watching. As always, my stuff is crap. And until next time, good hunting.